We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
So Civil War, the Civil War fascinates me. And people go, it's a war, Deanne. 600,000 people died in that war. More Americans died in that war than like all the wars put together. So why would it fascinate me? I think it's just the time period. I think it's the clothes.
Because as I was watching it, it would just be sad because you just would watch all of these people going into slaughter.
Well, and back then, I don't think that they realized how serious it was going to turn into, because families would go and take a picnic and watch the battle.
Yeah, at the first Battle of Bull Run, they were buggies and women in their fine dresses up on the ridge watching the battle.
Yeah, and see, I just don't get that. Let's go watch people shoot each other.
It was the first battle of the Civil War, after Fort Sumter, but one of the first battles, the Battle of Bull Run.
Yeah, and I think, after, I don't know how long, but after a while, people thought, oh, wow, this is the real deal, and we're not going to go watch. But I guess, no Netflix or something. I don't know.
That is way bizarre entertainment.
A little trippy.
I don't think I would take my child to that.
Hey, it's kind of like going to a hanging. Come on.
Yeah,
right? I don't think I was really up for that either.
One of the things about the Civil War is just how much trauma has been inflicted on the nation because of it. And you think about not just the loss of life, but the things people were fighting over, slavery being the major issue, and also how divided families were. I mean, you had siblings that were fighting against each other in the Civil War, that were taking different sides of these political views.
Right, and I think because of that, there was a lot deeper energy. Any war is going to have energy, heavy energy, but you've got family against family and just the things they were fighting for. And not only did it leave emotional scars just from war, but then the additional, because you're fighting families, but it left literal scars. I've not yet been to Gettysburg. It's
I
on
have.
my bucket list.
And it's amazing.
Show off.
Just saying.
So were you able to see, because where I was going with this is they say that there's still shrapnel that you can find on the ground there, because there was so much, and if you can find it, I guess you can take it home.
I didn't do any looking, but I'm sure you could find it. I was a teenager when I went to Gettysburg, so I wasn't out raking the fields, but you could see where, cannons had been set up, where, different hills were at, where they'd, done charges, with the infantry, and it was you could say it's hallowed ground. I mean, there is definitely an air of reverence that kind of falls over that place for sure.
So I think we were in Jamestown, where there was a battlefield, and we went because they advertised it as a revolutionary battlefield. And when we went, and I don't doubt that it was, but when we went, there's all these berms that they'd built, and I thought, wow, I don't know why I didn't think that they built berms.
And earthworks and...
Yeah, for the Revolutionary War, but we went down a little ways and read a sign, and the berms were actually from the Civil War. And I thought, you got a twofer here, people. You need to advertise it as a twofer. But they didn't. But yeah, as far as hallowed ground, there's definitely a feel when you go on those battlefields. It's just, I don't want to say heavy, but almost like you're walking into a church. Just
yeah, I would agree.
A little bit more kind of a reverent feel, I guess. For sure. But I guess they say in Gettysburg you can still find shrapnel in the trees and bullet holes in trees and bullets, in fences and houses, and because there was just so much at Gettysburg. There was like 51,000 people that were killed at Gettysburg alone.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the biggest battle in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine wanting to take any of that home with me. Like, that can't be good. What kind of a souvenir is that?
Right. I think that would be heavy.
Definitely heavy.
A heavy souvenir.
I saw an interesting video where they were talking about the witness trees at the Gettysburg battlefield. And these are trees that were alive during the war, during the battle there. And there's a whole documentary, and they've gone out and they've documented a number of these trees that are, that were actually there at the time. There's some interesting trees. There's one by a bridge, and there's a picture of the bridge from the 1800s, which shows the tree, and now it shows this beautiful big, I think it was a mahogany or a oak or something, but a big tree. And again, these are trees, living things that actually witnessed the battle, far as plants witness things, but they're living things,
Right.
like the longest living, Civil War veteran lived well into the 1900s. There aren't any of those around. There's no World War I veterans around, but there are still living organisms that were actually at Gettysburg and witnessed. And it's quite an interesting documentary.
And I thought it was interesting because they brought in special, like, historical horticulturists. And I thought, I did not know that was a thing.
That is a pretty niche field right
I
there.
know.
I'm a historical horticulturist.
And I don't know if that's exactly what it was called, but that's what they did.
Plants aren't enough. History's not enough. I'm going to combine these two and just make it my jam. Pretty interesting.
How busy can you get? I don't know. Of course, we're ghost hunters, so they could argue with us.
Right.
But anyway, with all this unrest, all this emotion, all this turmoil going on, there's going to be ghosts here.
Absolutely.
There's going to be ghosts here.
So one of the videos that I watched was I seen a ghost of a horse. It had a soldier on it, and it just kind of appeared and kind of ran off the screen, and it was kind of a blurb, but
So was it like
it was a horse.
recreation, or was it something that someone
No,
had
it was
filmed?
something that somebody had caught.
I need to see.
Happy
So-
YouTube.
I thought it was interesting is as I was kind of studying this, it went into kind of the death rituals of the time. And I mean, just the war itself is going to bring those emotions, but a lot of the reason was how death was handled. It was a big deal. And at the time, most people died at home. You didn't go to the hospital to die or the old folks' home. You died at home. And at the time, your whole families would be there because you're at home, right? And apparently at the time, when people were dying, they didn't give them sedatives or painkillers because they wanted you to be fully aware as you were transitioning from this life to the next. I would be like, hello, knock me out, because not only I'm aware of everything, which includes this pain and this pain.
Very aware I've been shot. Thank you.
Yeah, no kidding. Like,
Even when you passed, people treated the bodies very carefully. I mean, they would take photos with the body, and they would take locks of hair and make pictures.
Braided.
yeah.
Braid the hair and make braided watch
And
things.
They didn't just ship you off to the mortuary. They took,
Right, weren't the funerals like in the front room of some of these homes?
Yeah. And then they would hold a wake or celebration, followed by the funeral, and then you'd be buried in the family cemetery, which was usually in the backyard or maybe at the local church. And we were in Ohio a few years ago, and I was looking for some families' grave sites. And I just went and asked, hey, where's the cemetery? And they're like, which one? And I'm like, the city cemetery. There's like 12.
Yeah, this is a very small town, and it's like 12 cemeteries.
And I looked into, I just went there like, we'll try this one. And so I went there, and it was pretty close. And luckily, he was there, the relative I was looking for. But the whole process would give families closure, because they would go through this whole ritual, literally, step by step by step. But when you die on a battlefield, people said that, a lot of them would just be buried in mass graves.
Right.
Sometimes they would tell the families, go find them. So they, pack up a lunch, take the kids, go look for, shot up uncle or shot up.
Go digging through a mass grave for your family member?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or, just the battlefield and, go look.
Well, and the other side of that is the people that were told that their relatives had been killed, and then they come wandering in a month or two later, come wandering home, and they weren't, they hadn't been killed.
Right.
Oops, my bad.
But this is one reason why they think spiritualism popped up about this time really big, is because people wanted that closure. And, they thought our brother passed and, we couldn't find his body, or, he was buried in a mass grave, or, whatever. And so they were trying to make those connections to make that closure. And so that's why the spiritualist movement, that Victorian time really popped up.
That makes sense.
Wanting to communicate.
Yeah.
We will get to Gettysburg in a minute because it's pretty amazing. Even though it was tragic, it's still amazing what happened there. But there is a house in New Orleans called the Beauregard Keys House. And it is very famously haunted with some Civil War stuff. So there's a Confederate general. His name was P.G.T. Beauregard. And he lived in this house in the French Quarter for about 2 years. And it was after his wife had passed. It is said that they see his ghost wandering around the rooms in full dress uniforms. Soldiers that fought with him have also been seen in the home. And there was one guest that reported that he had a full conversation with a soldier in a garden party, thinking that it was, oh, you know, I'm in the South, and they've got someone dressed up just to add some ambiance. And then he found out later, yeah, we didn't do that at this party. You know, we didn't do a Civil War reenactment at this, you know, little shindig.
Not that kind of party.
Exactly. They also said that they hear orchestra music and dancing feet in the
Ballroom.
in the
or
ballroom.
something?
Yeah, when there's no one there. So that's pretty creepy.
Right. A lot of residual stuff happening.
Then there's a place called Kolb's Farm. It's in Marietta, Georgia. There was a battle of Kennesaw Mountain, which ended in 1864. And shortly after, wasn't too long after, that people started reporting seeing apparitions of soldiers on the field. And they would hear gunshot and cannon fire. Some people reported hearing or smelling like the gunpowder and smelling blood, as though you're there. There was a father and son. They were driving through Battlefield Park, and they were confronted by a uniformed man on a horse. And they realized this isn't a reenactment. I mean, it's just a weird time of day, and, you know, like the middle of the week type of a thing. And then that just, poof, they disappeared. They said that they were so close they could see the Union emblems on his hat and on his jacket, and they could see his saber before he just kind of trotted off, and his horse jumped over the fence and kind of disappeared.
Oh, wow.
And then there was a mischievous ghost. I guess there was a housing development that was built on the battlefield. These soldiers would go into the house, and there's one that was kind of mischievous, and he would slam doors and drop coins on the floor. And I guess the people that live there have kind of come to terms with it, and just kind of a playful ghost.
That's interesting. I watched one where a news station is being haunted by many different types of residuals, I would have to say, because they are on grounds. Because it's a news station, they actually got a little bit more footage, but one lady was arriving for work at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and she was sitting in her car, and it was kind of the same thing. This person came running at her with a saber, and she was like, oh, what is that? And turned, as I turned, because you can see me turning. And then she turned and looked back, and it was gone. And it went over a bunch of, like 5 or 6 different people that had worked there had, you know, separate things happening with them.
Right.
But they just get used to it. It's just, that's what happens.
That's
This
what
is where we
happens.
are.
With war, I mean, there's the war itself, shooting each other and dying, you know, on the battlefield. But people go to the hospital, and as Doc can attest, there's some gruesome things that go on in hospitals.
Yes, indeed.
There's a place called the Marshall House Hotel, and it is in Savannah. And if you go there now, it looks like a very genteel, typical Southern, you know, hotel. It's got, you know, the cool Greek Revival architecture on it and everything. In the Civil War times, it served as a Union hospital. As we all know, medicine back then was not like it is now, pretty gruesome. They had to do a lot of amputation of limbs.
Oh,
Okay.
ouch.
And see where this is going. They decided to kind of refurbish this hotel in the 1990s, so not that long ago, although that's 40 years ago.
Don't think about
Yeah,
that.
it's 30 if you're going to 1990, but mid-90s, let's go 25.
Okay. So not that long ago, but they found a stash of amputated limbs beneath the floorboards.
They were just shoving them under the floor?
Shoving them under the floor.
Off with your leg.
Yeah. A lot of people in that hotel were claiming that they were seeing ghosts. And so now they're thinking, were they wandering around looking for their arms and legs and stuff? But how grisly would that be? To be like, let's pull up this floorboard, and then there's just all these arms and legs in there. That would be,
those poor people.
that would be creepy. They have also seen ghostly children in this hotel.
Oh.
Just kind of running and laughing down the halls. They have also seen, like it's a nurse almost, just going down the hall, checking people's temperatures. Like she's putting her hand on people's heads, just to, like she's working.
Yeah.
And there's also a ghost cat there.
Yeah. These poor people that keep working.
I know. I don't want to be that kind of
Yeah.
ghost, man. I want to be
Yeah,
like, can I be the
stuff like that.
retiree on the beach ghost? The one who's
Right?
like sipping a drink, getting a tan. I want to be that ghost.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm working and it's 150 years later.
See, I'm
And,
gonna look around and be like, you know what? I'm dead. I'm gonna go have fun.
right?
Go spy on people. I'm gonna go spy on people.
Do something. Well, it depends. If you're still a paranormal investigator and I'm gone, I'm gonna go investigate with you.
Okay, sounds
Right?
good. Deal.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes. So at this hotel, Uncle Remus, author, the guy who wrote Uncle Remus, his name is Joel Chandler Harris, and they think that his ghost is there as well, typing on a typewriter. Again, still working.
Right? And is that just a specific room? If you stay in room blah blah blah, you'll experience him typing?
I don't know. It just said reports of, but I bet if you go there and ask for the typewriter ghost room, they'll probably give it to you.
Sure.
I think they would know what one it is.
Right?
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.